You're listening to the Save the Marriage podcast. Your marriage can be saved and strengthened if you have the right information. Join Dr. Lee Baucom as he explores ways for you to improve your relationship and your life, starting right now.
Hey, this is Lee Baucom. I am the host of the Save the Marriage podcast. I'm also the creator of the Save the Marriage system. That is the system that I designed to help people to save and restore their relationship, no matter how bad it is, even if you're working by yourself. So if you're here, I'm assuming that you are working on saving your marriage, and perhaps you and your spouse are working on that, but that's not necessary. And so many times people are like, how could you save a marriage by yourself? Well, the fact is that when you change your side of the equation, it affects the entire relationship. It's kind of like a dance. If you change your dance steps, it changes how the other person has to follow your steps. So what we want to do is talk some about how you can move things forward. And so I thought we would do something with the to-dos and to-don'ts. And so I want to give you a number of to-dos and a number of to-don'ts to help guide your process. Now, this is part one. There'll be two of these. I want to give it to you so that you're able to step into this piece by piece and recognize that when you're ready to truly step into this, please join me at savethemarriage.com, grab my system. And right now, if you go ahead and grab my system, I'll give you a free week of my VIP program, which is designed to give you extra tools, extra training, and extra help. The way we do the extra help is I have a weekly conference call, and you can get your questions answered there. But there are also lots of other tools that are there. I give you a free week, but only when you purchase the system, then you qualify for that only that one time. And there's an offer that I have. Also, right now, we're making sure that our coaches contact you if you want that. You just have to give us a little information, and one of my coaches will contact you to have a short get started session. So all of that starts at savethemarriage.com. So that's where you want to go when you are ready to step into this. So let's talk about some to-dos and to-don'ts. And that means that there are things you want to do and things you want to avoid. So let's talk about this. Some of these are kind of a theoretical understanding, but they should guide how you go through. So the first to-do is to get curious. I think very highly of the concept of curiosity. I'm a very curious person by nature. In fact, years ago, I was teaching a graduate level class on being a marriage and family therapist. And somebody in the class said, so what do you think is the number one attribute for being, a good therapist? And so I asked them, turn it around. What do you think? And they told me things like empathy, and they told me things about having skills of communication. And they went on a number of things. And I went, that's not what I think. I think it is true for a therapist, a great therapist, and a good spouse, that a cornerstone of that is curiosity. I'm curious about your perspective. I'm curious about what's going on. I'm curious about what happens between us that's gotten us to this point. Curiosity starts to build the path to empathy. You see, when you are in a troubled relationship, sometimes it's hard to feel empathy. And so the starting point is to be curious. I'm curious on how they're responding this way. I'm curious on how they see the world. I'm curious on what's going on between us. That's what begins the process, which leads to a really important to-don't. Don't assume. You may have heard the phrase about what it means when you assume, right? But in this particular thing, when you assume you already know what your spouse is thinking or why they did something, it takes you down a path that you probably have already gone down many other times, to the point that you have not just a path, but you've created a chasm right between you. And that's what happens in our neuronal pathways and also in our relational pathways, that you start getting stuck. You start making assumptions, and those assumptions lead you in ways that don't allow for openings. It's already shut. You're already seeing the path this goes. And so do be curious. Don't assume you already know. That's the first. The second to do is to prioritize reconnecting over being right. Now, I want to just kind of put the right in quotations because I see this all the time. People battle over, I'm right about this and I'm going to prove it. I'm not saying that there may not be a piece of that, right? That you may not have all the pieces of information is important to recognize. And so when I say to be right, I'm not saying your spouse is right. I'm saying when you go for right, when you want to be right, you're putting up a block because you're already in a defiant stance. You're already in an argumentative stance. And what we're really needing to treat here is the disconnection. The disconnection is what's getting you in trouble. So part of what can happen when we prioritize reconnection is that we begin to heal that hurt. We begin to heal those hurt places. And so when you prioritize reconnection, you go about the discussion differently. When that is on your to-do, to reconnect, to rebuild the connection, you go about your interactions in very different ways. You have a different outcome you're trying to get to. I'm going to prove I'm right about this never has solved many problems in life, but certainly not problems in relationship. So let's deprioritize being right and reprioritize reconnection. So that brings us to the don't. Don't focus on winning the argument at the expense of the relationship. Now, what you didn't hear me say is don't have conflict. I didn't say that. You will have conflict. In any intimate relationship that matters, there are going to be disagreements that you have to work through. It's just the way it is when there are two people involved. You have different ways of seeing the world. You have different ways of understanding what's going on, different ways of thinking through how should this happen? How should we do this? And because of that, you're going to have disagreements. That's okay. You're going to have conflict points. That's okay. The question is, do you allow the conflict to serve the process of bettering your relationship? Is conflict in the service of making improvements in the relationship? That's a whole different thing than is a conflict my chance to prove I'm right. When I've sat with many, many couples over the course of my career, I watch them slip into this. They're out to win. They're hoping that I will referee the match and that I will proclaim that they're right. Now, sometimes they hide that a little bit, but that is what they're often looking for. When they prioritize the fact that there is conflict, that means they need to grow in different ways. They need to challenge how they've made assumptions. Then they grow as a relationship. They grow naturally as a relationship. So the to-do, prioritize reconnection over being right. The to-don't, focus on winning. Don't focus on winning the argument at the expense of the relationship. It serves neither your relationship nor you. Number 3, this is your to-do, express how their actions are affecting you, but do it using I feel kind of statements. I am hurt by this, right? I'm wounded by this. I am hurt, angry, frustrated, whatever. I'm hurt, angry, frustrated when you do this. Notice how it ties it to that. So it's how I'm being affected. Whenever you claim how you're being affected, that's a fair thing, right? Nobody can say to you, you can't be angry, you can't be whatever. You're saying this is how it's affecting you. That's your to-do, to express how their actions are affecting you only using the I feel statements. So what's your to-don't? Don't label them and don't attack their character. So if you say, I feel hurt when you do X, notice how that's different than saying, you're so selfish. What's wrong with you? That becomes a character attack. It's very hard to find a way forward when you feel like yourself, you, are being attacked for who you are, and that is true for your spouse. So we want to avoid that. We want to make sure we don't fall into that trap of labeling them in some derogatory way or attacking their character. Addressing somebody's behavior is very different than attacking their character. Okay, that brings us to number 4. Your to-do list, to do, is to respond to your partner's bids for connection, even the small ones. So let's talk about what this means. John Gottman, who is one of the researchers that I hold in high esteem, studies how couples fall apart and how they stay together. And one of his studies showed that couples make bids towards each other. If I'm walking down the street and say to my wife, "Oh, look, isn't the sun beautiful? Isn't the sunset beautiful? Look at the moon and look how full it is." I am offering a bid. Let's look at this together. Let's join. I'm bidding for your attention in something. So according to John Gottman, there are 3 ways that we can deal with a bid. One is we can accept the bid. We join with them. "Oh, yes, you're right. It's so beautiful." We can turn against, which means, "Why are you even bring this up? Don't you know I'm busy here?" Or turn away and just kind of ignore it, right? Against and away is what doesn't help us much, but turning toward, that's what builds great relationships. And I know you may go, "Well, that's a small thing," but it's not a small thing because it's an indication that we are having this shared experience. We're in this together. That's the purpose of bids, to say, aren't we in this? And I will tell you, I've watched it over my career as couples come in and as they turn away or against constant attempts for bids. So respond, that's the to-do. Respond to your partner's bids for connection, even the small ones. Sunset, sunrise, leaves, pretty sweater in the window, whatever it is, look at that. Look at that TV show. Isn't that interesting? That's a bid that most people miss. So you can probably guess what your to don't is. Don't dismiss or ignore their attempts to connect. You've got to mine the resources available to you, both by giving bids and not getting caught up in how they're dealt with, and accepting bids, making sure that you don't turn away or against. So turn toward bids versus turning away from bids. That's your to do and your to don't. The last one we'll talk about today is do. This is your to do. Own your part in conflicts, even if it's just a small part of it. I don't ever suggest that somebody say, "You're right, all of this is my fault. This is all of my bad. This is all because I have made a mistake." Generally speaking, in most, if not every relationship I've seen, both people have a role, not in actions, but a role in the disconnection between them. There's the role that we all are part of, the disconnected relationship that's there. And even if it's 5% or 10% that you're willing to take on, take it on. Take on what you find yourself truly responsible for after you do a little soul searching to make sure that you really are clear about where you are responsible. You have to own your part in a conflict in order to move through it. Because if you're saying it's not my fault, I'm the victim here, you're never going to find a way to move forward. So that's your to do, take responsibility, own your part in conflicts, whatever part it is. To don't. This is what you don't do. Don't defend yourself by listing everything they've done wrong. So when they say, you did this, and you go, "Oh, well, that didn't matter at all, but you did this, this, and this," right? You come at them to try to point out that they are at fault. That's the danger. We live in a world where many people right now are choosing not to take responsibility for who they are and where they are in the world. None of us choose our spot, but all of us have a role in that. I want to be clear. Again, wherever you are responsible, you need to say, I'm responsible for this. You don't have to say I'm responsible for everything, but you can't say I'm responsible for nothing. So your to-do, do own your part in the conflict. Do own your part in where the relationship is. Don't defend yourself by listing everything they've done wrong. Okay, that's the first 5 to-dos and to-don'ts. We'll come back again next week for the next 5. But in the meantime, please think about this seriously. If you're ready to move forward with saving your marriage, come join me at SaveTheMarriage.com. Grab my system, SaveTheMarriage.com. We have lots of other resources, but this podcast isn't enough to untie where you're stuck. You need more help. That would be the system. SaveTheMarriage.com. This is Lee Baucom wishing you the best as you work to save your marriage.
You've been listening to Save the Marriage podcast. For more information and help, please visit us at SaveTheMarriage.com.